Okay, so we are continuing in our learning of Mishlei 1917. Yud Zayin, so quick review, and then we've got some stuff to do. Malve Hashem konen dal, ugemulo yishalim lo. So one who gives graciously to the poor is a lender to Hashem, or makes a debtor of Hashem. Again, debtor, yeah, makes a debtor of Hashem. He's making Hashem in debt. Ugemulo yishalim lo, and he and his reward he will pay to him. He with a capital H will pay to him with a lowercase h. Oh, by the way, you know the phrase ilamale pasuv ilamale mikra pasuv iyachar omro, right? Like the pasuk didn't say it, then the other it. So the Ri Nachmias in the Peirush says that quotes. Yeah, if you want to look at it, actually, it's in page Tav Kuf Lamed Hey. Right column on the bottom, last line. Malve Hashem chonein dal. You see it? Amar Rabbi Yochanan ilma mikra kasav iyavshar laomro pivyachol eved lezeh leish malve. Eved lovev leish malve. A borrower is a servant to the lender, and that's another pasuk in Mishlei. So it is interesting that the Gemara, I think, in Bava Batra, that it acknowledges that it's a very inappropriate mashal, so that's interesting. Yeah. We're not going to do the rest of the Ri Nachmias right now, but so our questions were: how do you loan to God? What's the mashal? What do we make of the troubling implication of putting God into a subordinate role and him owing you? That was all one question. Question two: what is the gemul? How is it paid? Seemingly the gemul is separate from the paying back of the loan, because you don't call that gemul, like Rabbi Yonah said. Three: what's the relationship between the halva'a and the gemul? 4, what does it mean to be chonein dal? Is this just a synonym for tzedakah in general, or is it a specific way or type of giving? 5, what is a dal? Is it any poor person, or is it a specific type of poor person? 6, what is the practical need for the pasuk? What or whom is this addressing, and what the Peirush? So the basic idea that I suggested last time was that that a dal is someone who is in a situation of poverty where he is in the lowest rungs of society, like a homeless person on the street, where not as opposed to, let's say, like a neighbor who's on hard times. And so when you give money to him, there's this feeling of, I'm just throwing money away, because the guy is either going to just he's just going to, I'm just keeping him alive for another day and then he's going to die, or he's going to use it for some, alcohol or whatever, and so there's this feeling of, I'm just throwing money away. So that's where the first half of the puzzle comes in and says, no, you treat this as a loan that Hashem will pay you back, meaning that there is a guaranteed return. So the first half of the pasuk is addressing the reluctance to give because of who the dal is. And then the second part of the pasuk says what the return is, which is it's gemul in terms of your perfection, in the sense that instead of looking at this guy in a utilitarian framework of what is the worth of this person such that I should or shouldn't support him, which is almost borders on the reasoning the Gemara gives for why murder is Yahareg val Yavor, which is who's to say that your blood is more red before God? We don't engage in a calculus about someone's life, and not to get drushy, but because I'll say a lot of times that Ani is Hashem Kames, because he's on the brink of dying. Certainly this kind of guy. So for you to say, well, I'm not going to feed this guy because his life is not worth it, that's a horrible imperfection. And therefore, when you give money to this poor person, despite the fact that you don't know what he's going to become or what his worth is, you are basically reinforcing this idea that he is a fellow Tzelem Elokim, and I am, and he's no different than me in that respect. And there's an intrinsic good in supporting him, and that's the gemul. The gemul is the perfection that you get from using your money that way. And it's a type of perfection that, I forgot if I said this last time, we talk a lot about how the Talmud Torah Keneged Kulam, in the sense that the mitzvos, the ideas of the mitzvos really perfect you. And that's why, for example, you could learn about stuff in the base of Mikdash or stuff that's no longer in practice and you still get perfection. But there is a perfection that you really only get by enacting it. And you could talk from here till tomorrow about how everyone is created b'Tzelem Elokim, but if you don't actually give your money, if you don't put your money where your mouth is, where your mind is, then that idea is not going to be real to you. So the fact that you're actually giving up from your money and conquering, overriding this false reasoning, that actually perfects you, you know. And there's a pasuk that I like to quote, but always forget where it is in Yirmiyahu that says, hold on, Aurelius, I did it in one of the podcasts. Hold on. Nope. Knowledge of me. Nope. Yirmiyahu. Yeah, here we go. There's a pasuk in Yirmiyahu that says, it's in Chaf Beis Tes Zayin. Dan din ani ve'evyon az tov. So if you judge the case of the poor and the destitute, then that's good. Halo hi hadas osi. Isn't that the person who knows me? Or isn't that what knowing me is? Nu'um Hashem, says Hashem. So Yedias Hashem, so it's saying helping the poor is Yedias Hashem, you know, which is a strong statement that like, you know, that I mean, and how that connects to Yedias Hashem specifically, we're not really addressing, but like it's the act itself that is the measure of what constitutes real knowledge, you know, of like emulating God's ways and such. Yeah. Okay, so what I wanted to show you, okay, of the Rambam's major works, what do you think is the most underlearned? I don't think so. I think people would think that. I don't think so either. Actually, maybe you're right, but I think it's the Peirush HaMishnayos in areas that are not commonly learned, you know, and like I always have this thought that since the Rambam, that was his first work, that was his first work that he wrote. Like it's, you know, entirely reasonable. We know this like from other stuff that he puts lots of fundamental things there. I mean, he has his whole approach to Torah, all of Chelek and the Ikarim, you know, and like, you know, so much stuff. So I was looking, we did the Rebbeinu Yonah last time about how there are things that you get, you ochel pertem b'olam hazeh v'akeren kemet olam haba. So that's in Peah 1:1, and I was looking at the Rambam on it today, and I was like, this is a great Rambam. So let's look at that. Okay, and we're using the context of Peirush Mishnayos.
It's after yeah, Eliam.
Got it?
Yes.
Okay, so let's read the Mishnah first, just to get our bearings. Elu dvarim she'ein lahem shir. These are the things that have no measure. Peah, v'habikurim v'harei ayon, ugmilus chasadim v'talmud Torah. Elu dvarim ochel mi perosehem ba'olam hazeh. These are the things that you eat of their fruits in this world. V'hakeren kaimas lo l'olam haba. And the principle remains for you in olam haba. Kibud av'im, ugmilus chasadim, v'havat shalom bein am l'chavera, v'talmud Torah k'neged kulam. Yeah. Okay, so we're not going to do the Peirush Mishnayos on the whole thing. Look at on the first page, left column, last line. Karen, see there? Ha'ikar. So Karen is the main part. Uperosehen haravachim. So Perosem is the prophets. Profit. The Inyan Amru Ochel. Okay, next page. Ochel mi perosem. So what does it mean that you eat of their fruits? Karen Kaimaslo, and the principle remains for you. Omer La. This is what it's saying to you. So this is a very universal thing. Kol ha-mitzvos nechalachos chaluka rishona l'shnayim. So all mitzvos are divided in their primary division into two. Chelek b'mitzvos ha-miyuchados la'adam ba'atzmo beino uvein Hashem kigon hatzitzis v'atfilin v'hashabbos v'avodah zarah. So one is the mitzvos that are specific to man with himself, between him and God. That's an interesting description. Like tzitzis, tefillin, Shabbos, and avodah zarah. V'chelek mitzvos hatlios b'tzikinus yachasei b'nei adam ze im ze. And then there are the mitzvos that are dependent on the, or I guess upon which depend the correction of the relations between people, of people between each other. Kagon ha'azhara al-geneva, like the prohibition against stealing, va'ona, and cheating, va'sina, and hatred, va'natira, and bearing a grudge. And the commandment to love each other, and to not deceive each other.
That stand idly by.
Yeah, I was going to say, I assume that's lo samal adam re'acha. Right, to not allow someone to get a second person to get damaged. Ulachabit hahorim v'hachachamim shehim avos hakol, and to honor your parents and the chachamim, which are the parents of everything.
Even though before says lo samal.
Okay, there you go. Im kayim ha'adam hamitzvot hamiyuchados lo ba'atzmo u'v'mesh bina levein bora'o. If a person fulfills the mitzvot that are between himself and his creator, yesh lo al zeh sachar yigmalehu Hashem al kaf l'olam haba. So then there's going to be a reward that God will bestow to him in olam haba. Commotion navar b'perek Chelek, like we'll explain in perek Chelek. V'im kiyim, now this is what I want to get to. V'im kiyim ha'adam hamitzvot ha'tfuliyus b'tkinut yachate b'nei adam zeh mzeh. If a person fulfills the mitzvot upon which are dependent the correction of relations between each other, yesh lo al zeh sachar l'olam haba al kimo hamitzvah. So you do get schar l'olam haba for fulfilling the mitzvah. V'yasig to eletz ba'olam hazeh lihisnahaguso hisnahagus tova im b'nei adam. And you attain a benefit in this world in your conduct, in having good conduct among people. Because if you follow this path and the other person follows this path, then he will also benefit from this benefit. So that's like Zev, what you were saying, I think, at one point when we were saying what the I forgot if you were explaining the first or the second half of the pasuk, but that's what he's saying. The Peirush is in Olam Hazeh, right? Is that you are improving societal relations and enjoying the benefits of that. So that's like, I kind of assume that in Mishlei a lot for talking about rewarding, Hashem rewarding us for mitzvot being on l'chavero, but I did not know that the Rambam says that explicitly. So that's interesting. The pain mitzvot should be an adam l'chavero nichlalim b'chlal gemilas chasadim. So he's taking a broad view of Gemilas Chasadim that all the mitzvot bein Adam L'Chaver are included in that, okay? Which is odd because the Rambam's strict definition of Chesed is giving that which you don't owe or are not obligated in. So the fact that he's including all mitzvot bein Adam L'Chaver in Gemilas Chasadim is interesting. He's bonin b'hem timtayim. If you contemplate them, you'll find him. Halo tire shehilo hazakin kish amar lo hagoy lamdini Torah al regalachas. So don't you see that Hillel Hazakin, when the goy said to him, teach me all of the Torah on one foot. Amar lo, he said to him, the Allah bish lachavrach lo tavid. What is bad to you, to your friend, do not do. Right, so that's like a binam l'chavero thing. And when you investigate this, you'll find that Talmud Torah is equal to everything. Talmud Torah yeda ha'adam es kol zeh. Because through Talmud Torah you will know all of this. That, as we explained above, that Talmud brings you to action. Yeah. So I think that's a nice compliment to the Rabbeinu Yonah's thing. Let's just read the Rabbeinu Yonah again and see if we can understand it in light of this. So what page was it on here? Rabbeinu Yonah was on. Okay, two words are on the bottom of or on Taf Kuf Lamed Daled, which he says. Malve Hashem Tichonin Dal Ugumulo Yeshalim Ki Yeshalim. Next page, Skar Balamazeh. V'yefer lo halva atza mashal lelove shum mashalim lemave. So he will pay you in this reward in this world and repay your loan. That is a mashal for borrowing a borrower that pays the lender. Ugumulo Yeshalim lo. And his reward he will bestow to him. So even though he will not, even though he'll pay back his loan, he will not refrain from paying him back the reward for the mitzvah, like other mitzvot, that are rewarded in olam haba. That's what I mean when they say that tzedakah has a principle and reward and the fruits. And that's the end of his main Peirush. Right. So does this help us refine things now that we have the Rambam? So he's saying that the first half of the pasuk is talking about the reward in this world, which Rabbeinu Yonah again does not really talk about, but according to the Rambam, reward in this world is the fact that you are improving society, and that is a guarantee. He's saying, in the sense it's a guarantee in the same sense that payback when you loan Hashem money is a guarantee. Yeah.
Even if it's a guarantee that you improve society, is it really a guarantee that you're going to get benefit?
I guess that's a question. I guess insofar as you are a part of the society, then the act puts a net benefit into society in the sense that, like, a society is nothing but the individuals and the actions of the individuals. So to some extent, by definition, you are improving the society and like enhancing its potential to yield benefit. It doesn't mean that you per se will get the benefit. And like the example I gave this example on Monday night Mishlei, where if you are, let's say, in a school and you find someone's lost object, so the Chacham, who only thinks in terms of direct long-term consequences, will say, I could return this because number one, I would want someone to return mine, and number two, if I return this, it's going to create goodwill from the recipient, and like they'll be more inclined to do something good for me. But the tzaddik will return it even if no one knows about it, and even if he doesn't get anything in return, because he just knows that creating a school society in which people care about each other's objects will produce a net benefit, which he may or may not be the recipient of directly, but he will be the recipient of the long run.
So how, right, I get, yeah, it's the discussion, but how does his action of giving it back when no one knows about it, how is that going to affect the general student?
I think because the person who received it back knows that someone returned it. And I think that promotes that idea of v'ahavta l'recha kamocha and equality of people who are, B'tel Melkim, or who are Jews, or who are members of that community, even though you don't know the particular person.
Okay.
Yeah. And it also prompts him to do it as well. Like, it's going to be much harder for the guy if someone returned his lost object and he's very happy about it. You have to have more of a being a jerk threshold if you find someone's lost object and you don't return it, like, because you've been the recipient of it, so like it's real to you, Yeah. Okay, so I think that's good for the Bnei Yonah. Now let's look at, I think. Let's look at Rashi. Hard to take a breath. Yeah, because Rashi takes an interesting shot. Well, I think he is saying it's a shot. Okay, so Rashi says, "Ugmul yishalem lo kishiyavali de chuli," when you are sick, v'nota lamos, and you're close to death. Melitza tzidkaso alav. Your tzedakah will intervene on your behalf. Will be like an intermediary. Lomar lifnei midas hadin, and say in front of the standard of strict justice. Ha'ani haitza nafsho mefarcheses latzeis bara'av. This poor person's soul was kicking to escape its body in starvation. So we are talking, by the way, this reinforces our idea that not my definition of dal that I gave on a societal level, but dal is extreme poverty. V'zeh, and this guy, Pirnaso, he sustained him. V'hachzira legufa, and returned it to his body, returned the soul to his body. Af ani omer, achzir nafsho elav. I too say, return his soul to him. Yeah.
Return his soul.
Meaning return his life to him. Meaning when you're sick and you're about to die. Yeah. And then let's complement this with the Ri Nachmias quote a similar midrash on that same page. Look at the second column, right where we stopped reading last time, on the bottom, second line, middle of the line. U'masayim b'vayikra rabba, kol mi shenosin pruta l'ani hakadosh baruch hu nosin lo pruta. So that's talking about like the God paying you back. That's like the most literal that you can get, right? If you give a pruta to an ani, God will give you a pruta. Okay, now they probably don't understand. But see, pruta who nosin lo? Does he give him a pruta? Hello. V'halo lo nosin lo ela nafsho. Doesn't he restore his life? So I don't know. I think like I don't know how we're supposed to read that. It sounds like it's like overriding the pruta thing.
Like even more than a pruta.
Even more than pruta, meaning like God, like it's not like you give pruta to an ani and a coin materializes in your pocket, to like pay you back. But like you get more than that, which is to get your nafsho. Now, if we stopped here, I would be inclined to read nafsho the way that we read it for our other interpretation, that is your perfection. But he then says, Kaf amarlo kadosh baruch hu, af kishenafshach mitzaftefes latzeis migufa. Even though your soul is like itching to get out of your body, hareini meshiva lach besof gufach. I will restore it to your body, and that sounds like your actual like being alive, right? And then he says Adkan. So that was quoting from that whole Gemara of in Bava Basra.
Is this Vayikra Rabba?
What was that? Oh, Vayikra Rabba. Oh yeah, from Vayikra. Yeah, from Vayikra Rabba. And then he says, "Paparshas be'elam mishpatim Peirush pasuk zeh ba'arucha bikef v'timtza." Oh, fine. So I guess that's another Peirush. Oh yeah. So the other stuff is different Peirushim. Yeah. So the question is like, what is Rashi and what is the Ri Nachmias getting at? That like, I mean, this is almost like I'm surprised no one has quoted Utzdaka Tatzil Mimaves, right? Because that's like it's a good drasha for that one. Much more direct than Bumulo Yeshalim Lo vague, you know.
Right.
So how does that work? And I think we have to think of it again in terms of supporting someone who is like a poor person who's literally in danger of dying. Speaking of like the jerk factor, I mean, like it really. I mean, I'm not saying like I'm exempt from this, but like if someone is actually dying in front of you and you don't give them money, that's like really, you know, wicked. You know, like that's like a real evil. And I'm saying I'm not exempt from this because I mean it is interesting how the fact that we're in a like in the olden days, the only time you actually encounter people like that, so to speak, is when you encounter them. Now, literally, like there are starving people all over the world, and you could send them money. You know, so like I don't know exactly how that plays in, but let's just think about the case where the person is actually you know, in danger of dying because of their poverty. So I guess what I'm emphasizing is that there's two things we have to consider. There's the positive of supporting such a person, but then I think there's also the negative of not supporting them. And I feel like you can't really think about the positive without thinking about the negative because it's a binary choice. Like either you do give money to them or you don't, you know?
Or
break the fruit in half and yeah. And then we also have to remember what the way Rashi framed it, which is your tzedakah intervenes and speaks to the midas hadin.
Yeah.
So I think this idea of by midas hadin standards, you should die, and then the tzedakah will intervene. And as I'm saying that, I'm thinking like I think the midas hadin part is easy to understand given what we've said, which is that like you have a life and you clearly would want someone to sustain your life and you view your own life as valuable. So if you are not treating this person's life as valuable and you are the same as this person, then why should God save you? Like, you know, you're demonstrating what you think of human life by the fact that you're not supporting this guy. So there's no reason why God should save you. So then how does the tzedakah like intervene?
I'm not even sure about the phenomenon, but I think I might have said how the pasuk reads that way.
Sure.
So Malva Hashem Chonidal, the first half is Hashem's gonna pay you back like the money that you're giving. And then Ugmulo Yeshalim Lo, the fact that so your reward is gonna be like paid to you, not given to you, is that you have a certain have a certain like deserving of being saved because you saved someone else. And that's why it's paid to you and not like given to you.
Yeah, and to support that, I mean, and I actually don't know. I don't know what the deal is with Rashi on like the manuscript thing. I'm assuming that the Dibur Matkos are accurate, and you notice that Rashi's only explaining the second half of the pasuk. Right, so like that supports it allows for your reading, you know. Yeah. Intercede, that's what I was looking for. Intercede on your behalf.
This definitely seems like a show.
I mean, it definitely does seem like that, yeah. Yeah. I'm just thinking about it. I agree that it seems. Yeah.
Although there's some difference between it.
Yeah, it's just your modern distinctions, you know, projecting medieval categories into the text. One thing I am thinking about, I wasn't going to say this as a response to you, but like if a person wanted to treat it as a response to you, then I wouldn't object. The guy who does not give tzedakah in this case, and the guy who does give tzedakah in this case, so clearly there's a difference in the way they value another person's life. But you would have to think that this also changes the way he values his own life. Because let's take Haman. Okay, I mean, if you take someone who is haughty and views himself as superior to others, and then you take the remedy to that is viewing everyone as inherently the same or inherently intrinsically equal, I don't see how you can maintain the haughtiness and maintain everyone is super great and the best ever. Like, so if you have this double standard where you view my life is, like if you have this like inner unconscious belief of like I am the Mamsi Kol Nimsa and everything is dependent on me and like I'm Gadol Gibor V'Nora, that is what leads you to treat other people's lives as not worth as much as yours. So if you correct that, I don't see how you can possibly maintain that same view of your own self. I feel like you're going to have to change the way that you view. I am just one of God's brios, and I don't have an intrinsic claim on life more than other people. Kind of like the statement which I first heard. I think, and now I'm not remembering if this was. I think I heard this in regards to Neil Blond. Is this? Did we move the plaque? The Neil Blond library. Neil Blond was a member of our yeshiva before my time, who died, I believe, of a brain tumor. And I think Rebbe, in his eulogy of him, or maybe I just heard this as an anecdote, said that when when someone asked him, like, don't you ever ask, like, why me? He said, why not me? Which I'm sure that has been said before, but that was, I think, where I first heard it. And like that, once you are viewing all people as intrinsically the same, as all, some Elohims in physical bodies in the world, it has to change your view of your own life, I think. Mm-hmm. You can't maintain a fantastical view of your own life and have this view of all other people.
Do you think it's always the case that when you have a low view of someone else's value, then it's like definitely means that you have a high view?
I don't think so, and the reason why is because I think in the psychological realm, if you're operating in a relative value system, then it is. I always fear that I'm misusing this word. It is a zero-sum game. Is that the thing where like if you're losing, then I'm winning, right? But let's say Moshe Rabbeinu definitely knows that his value is greater than everyone else's. But I would say he is capable of viewing every human life as intrinsically worthy of the Tzelem Elokim. But the thing is he's not operating in a relative value system. He's operating in an objective value system in terms of viewing things through God's eyes. So like, in other words, he realizes that on one level, all human beings are intrinsically the same and equal, certainly in their potential. But then he is more perfected than the average human being, and like he sees that Miriam and Aaron are more perfected than like Yehoshua, and so on. But so I think for most of us, let's put it this way, in Mishlei, I think that you can't view someone as lower without viewing yourself as higher. In Tehillim, you could. Yeah. So where am I going with this? I don't know. I guess what I was thinking is that so you could say that this is hashgacha, but I'm wondering if your view of your own life is different if you are the type of person who gives tzedakah to save people from on the brink of death versus if you don't.
And then how would that save you from?
I don't know. That's the part I don't know. And not to get too much. Okay, this is not what I initially set out to say. So draw a line, and then stepping over the line, and then now I'm going to say another thing. Is when a person is on the brink of death, we do know for a fact that when a person is on the brink of death, then psychological factors can actually affect their survival. This is like in terms of how much hope you have or how much you have to live for or whatever. This is documented. I don't have the studies at my fingertips, but like it seems like it is fairly well documented from what I've heard. And like, in Torah, we always say that like you should never give up hope, even when you're on the brink of death. And and like even the idea of like changing someone's name, that primarily is a vehicle for tshuva, but presumably it also gives you a different psychological thing, like the Rambam has in the Midarchei Tshuva, to change your identity and change your action. So what I'm wondering is if you have viewed the amount of fear and existential dread that you have when you view your life as intrinsically special and intrinsically important, is going to have a dark side, which is how you feel about your impending death. And if you realize the nature of what human life actually is and are at peace with your death, that's got to have a psychological effect on you. And I wonder if that can push you over the edge in terms of your death. I'm not saying it's just psychosomatic, like get over it. I am saying that maybe if the person who has done this type of tzedakah will be in a state where the philosophically rooted psychological fortitude will actually like make him less prone to death. Maybe. And that's just a speculative theory, but I think it's interesting. Yeah. At the very least, it's interesting. It might not be true. All right, good. I think this is a good puzzle to do going into Purim.
Yeah.
All right, nice. Okay, so I guess pause Mishlei until next week. Officially, as the official Mishlei. Yeah.
What is